surface, Chris and Shanann Watts had it all. Successful careers, a nice house in a tidy suburb, and 2 healthy kids with a 3rd one on the way.
Are you guys excited? Yes? Are you really excited? Oh my goodness.
This afternoon, my office filed formal charges against Christopher Lee Watts.
The only person who truly knows what happened is Chris Watts.
Daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong.
His case captured the nation since day one, after he stood in front of TV cameras reporting his wife and 2 little girls missing.
My kids are my life. I mean, those smiles light up my life. I want everybody to just come home. Like, wherever they're at, come home.
Everybody's like, well, what about the husband? What about the husband? What about the husband? And I'm like, no, like, he wouldn't do anything. And then I seen his interview, and I was like, oh my God, like, something's not right.
Somebody has her. Just please bring her back.
2 days later, his family would be found. Shanann buried in a shallow grave at an oil site where Chris Watts had worked. Little Cece and Bella, just 3 and 4 years old, discovered in 2 separate oil tanks not far from their mother's body. Police say Watts was having an affair with a co-worker and wanted to separate from his wife.
After the cheating revelation, Watts changed his story dramatically.
Watts told police it was his wife, Shanann, who killed little Cece and Bella.
He went into a rage and he killed her when he saw her strangling Celeste.
Watts is changing his story yet again. An emotional Chris Watts uttered the words guilty to multiple counts of murder, reportedly weeping between pleas as he wore a bulletproof vest.
This is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Breaking news, explosive confession tapes from convicted killer Chris Watts.
We're talking about 5 full hours of audio recordings as Chris Watts lays it all out there.
Bella had, I guess, unbuckled herself from the vehicle. Bella said, please, Daddy, do not do to me what you just did to Cece.
Welcome, I'm Mike Galanos. This is an HLN special report. Chris Watts, the true confession. The case of the killer dad, Chris Watts, captivated the nation, but part of that story remained hidden in the shadows until now. Our team has been scouring through hours of recordings and piles of documents, and through this hour, we're about to take you inside the Watts case like never before. You'll hear murderer Chris Watts, in his own words, describing the horrific murders of his wife and 2 young daughters. Really a warning up front. What you're about to hear is just brutal, and our own Cheyenne Malone has been going through this along with her team. Again, it is hard to go through, but it's really the heart of the case.
It really is, Mike, and like you mentioned, we're talking about 5 hours of audio. Chris Watts confessing to killing his pregnant wife and daughters. Very detailed, very cryptic in these audio recordings, but let's take you back. We all remember Chris Watts making a public plea for his family's safe return.
I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart.
That was initially, you know, he said he didn't know what happened to them. Then his story changes and says Shanann killed them. And then now he's confessing, saying that he did. Things dramatically changing since the early days of that investigation. Mike, listen as Chris Watts tries to explain to police how he could murder his wife and 2 young daughters.
Everything that happened that morning, I don't know, like I try to go back in my head. I'm just like, I didn't want to do this, but I did it. And everything just kind of like...
I felt like you had to?
It just felt like it was... I don't even want to say it felt like I had to. It just felt like there was already something in my mind that was implanted that I was going to do it. And I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control of it.
You never thought about it before?
It was just like, I don't want... Like, when... Like you said, like in the sentencing hearing, that prosecutor said it takes 2 to 4 minutes for something like that to happen. Like, why couldn't I just let go? I didn't. That's interesting. Okay, just like,
was it feeling like it was in motion and you just couldn't stop it?
Yeah, it was just like, I don't even want to know what she saw when she looked back at me, honestly.
Did you look at her? What was she doing? Why do you think she wasn't fighting?
Maybe she was praying. Maybe she was just. Now I read the Bible. It said, like, the scripture says, don't forgive these people for they do not know what they do. Maybe she was saying that. I don't know what she was saying in her head, but she, like when you guys told me, like, take off your shirt and check for defensive wounds, and there wasn't going to be any. She didn't fight. I don't know why.
If she didn't could she grab your arms, or were her arms pinned down, or?
Not that I remember. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think, like, I moved to where my knees were around her arms or anything, but I just wish I could have let go.
Did it seem like it was that long, 2 to 4 minutes? How long did it seem for you?
Almost kind of felt like it was longer almost, because it felt like time was standing still. It's kind of like I just saw my life just disappearing before my eyes, but it just like I couldn't let go. It was like somebody else, like if you picture somebody else around you, holding your hands, holding you, keep you from not letting go.
And we cover a countless amount of horrific crimes like this one, but we never generally hear all the details detailed like that. A lot of people asking why Chris Watts, why now, why confess? He's going to prison, he's not getting out, and he told investigators apparently he found God in prison, and he's hoping that people can forgive him. Mike?
These are unbelievable revelations that we're getting. We're going to be talking about all the different aspects through this hour. We'll be checking back with you, Cheyenne. Again, and horrifying to think about these little girls that revered their father as some kind of a hero, but yet he's going to drive them to their deaths. That's what we're finding out here. And that's one of the things investigators asked Chris Watts about. What was he thinking as he killed them?
Is it possible that in your mind, you didn't want them to suffer throughout their life? Was this like a mercy thing?
I mean, you can say that like after the fact, but it was just like, I don't.
You didn't feel like that during it?
I just didn't. I felt like it was just like an anger with Shanann, with everything, that I was just taking it out on everybody that was in front of me that morning.
How he simply killed them. I mean, it's beyond imagination here. And again, we have to warn you, and we'll try and intersperse warnings because this is disturbing to hear. But again, it's the heart of the case. As Chris Watts says, he put a blanket over Cece's head. That's the younger daughter, as he strangled her to death in the backseat of the truck. 4-year-old little Bella sitting beside her sister. He then took that blanket and killed her as well. She pleaded for her life. Her last words, from what we gather, "Daddy, no." He offered no other explanation for their murders other than he was consumed by rage. Rage at his life, at his marriage, at his wife, and at his children.
And what were you so angry at Shanann about? Like, if you could pinpoint it.
Nothing that makes anybody want to do this. You could be angry at your spouse like your whole life, but you should never have done anything like this. You should never let it get to that point. But I let it get to a point where I've never been angry before. Like, this is like the epitome of being angry.
Yeah.
The epitome of like showing a rage, the epitome of like losing your mind. And even like some people in here said, dude, like, what the heck happened? You must have freaking snapped. And like, I walked away. I'm just like, I don't see it in my mind how it could, like, I look outside every day and like, what could we be doing right now? Right now I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and more than likely a 1-month-old son. And a beautiful wife. It's just like, right now it's just me.
So sad when you see the pictures. We've seen the videos. Joining us now, two people coupled the story very closely. Pat Lalama, crime journalist. Also, Robbie Ludwig joins us, psychotherapist and author of the book, Till Death Do Us Part. I've got to just get, before we delve into specifics, just your initial reaction to hearing this and these new revelations over the last couple of days. Pat, I'll start with you.
Here's what I can tell you. In all the years I've covered crime, very little makes me dizzy or weak in the head or shatters my heart not from being cold or uncaring, but you just hear it all. This, I'm dizzy. I'm absolutely dizzy, and we can get into the minutia of it as we go along, but I've never been speechless when it comes to trying to assess what's inside someone's mind. But one thing I do feel, Mike, I don't believe he found God. Not for 1 second.
Wow, as we move forward. And I have to agree with you, to your point, Pat, covering many stories that are just so brutal. But to think of, we're almost seeing this really through the eyes of a 4-year-old little girl who she revered her father as a hero. We saw that in the video. Yet these are her last images, all of a sudden realizing this dad that she loved is the one that's going to take her life. It's unthinkable. Robbie, how does a man get to that place?
Oh, it is just really hard to imagine. First of all, he clearly is a psychopath. So he is not able to be emotionally connected to anyone other than himself. And here's what we're seeing. We're seeing somebody who was so enraged with his wife that he blamed her for everything that was wrong with his life and everything associated with her, which included their children together. This is a man who wanted a do-over. This is a man who was only thinking about himself and probably didn't even like being a father to her children. So that's how he saw it at the end. He just was on a mission. There was compulsion there. And I agree with Pat. This is not a man who has found God. You always have to look at what the real agenda is. And the real agenda is something very different than I think the public may be thinking.
I want to bring in Gene Casares as well, who's covered this case very closely. Gene has covered some tough cases as well. Gene, just as we talk and we process this ourselves as journalists, what have been your thoughts over the last couple of days with all these revelations that are so difficult to hear?
I guess I would say, you know, when you look at the facts, we now know that all three of them, Shanann and the two little girls, they all saw in one way or another what was happening to their mother, to their sister, and then they saw those hands come on to them and the blanket around their own head, the last daughter that was murdered. And so the suffering of the victims before they passed, I think we now know was extraordinary. So, you know, what is the purpose of knowing all this? Will it bring the family closure? Or will it bring them nightmares at night for the rest of their life? And they wanted to know. I mean, Shanann's family wanted to know the motivation. Do we really see the motivation here? Maybe yes, maybe no. But also, I guess experts can study this forever. But it's interesting that it comes out at this point. The defense did not bring that out at all in regard to a defense for him.
Welcome back to our HLN special report. Chris Watts, the true confession. Watts, seemingly thrilled to be a dad. You can practically feel the love you see in these photos here. Hard to imagine with his bare hands he would take his own daughter's lives, one with her favorite blanket, his older daughter, Bella, begging her dad, don't do to me what you did to her little sister, Cece. Again, unthinkable here. And prosecutors say Chris Watts wanted a fresh start in life, one that did not include his pregnant wife, Shanann, or his two little girls, 4-year-old Bella, 3-year-old Cece. But according to police, that new life would have included his mistress, Nicole Kessinger. Back with us, Gene Casares, again, has followed this case so closely. Refresh our memory. How does she figure into this, and what is he saying now about that relationship?
Well, he met her at work. So she worked in the office, and he bumped into her June 1st of 2018. I mean, that's not even a year ago at this point. And he thought he was just going to bump into her once. He thought it was just a flirtation. But then he kept bumping into her. And then her job duties changed, so he was more in the office. And then it just sort of took on, he says, a life of its own. Well, he had his phone, and they would start texting with each other also. And when he would talk with her, she would see his phone right there. And she even asked him once, you know, why did you come here? He said, oh, we relocated from North Carolina. Oh, we? He says, yes, my children and I. But he also says the picture of Shanann was on his phone. Here is what he said to police about the affair.
What were the conversations with Nikki as far as, at some point you guys were talking about her helping you find an apartment? So what did you guys talk about as far as your future together?
That didn't really happen until like I got back from the beach. So I lied to her, like, hey, like, I had talked to Shanann about getting the separation.
And that talk hadn't happened yet?
No, I mean, it kind of like, she knew something was going on. She knew we weren't sitting in the same room, and then she even mentioned the fact, like, hey, Colorado's a 50-50 state or something like that. Which, okay, I guess you looked it up. But, that actual talk hadn't like actually happened. I was just like, I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah. And so in conversations with Nikki, and I get it, I mean, you're telling her like the progress toward the divorce is a little bit more than it was. Mm-hmm. And then so what were you guys planning?
So it was more like she's going to help me find an apartment that was affordable. That's kind of just around like Brighton or maybe just close to work, like Fort Lupton or something around there. That's kind of like where my area was. Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about moving in with her?
She didn't want that.
She didn't want that? Would you have done that if she would have been cool with that?
I've been a little too soon. I would have thought there was just, we'd only been really seeing each other like almost like a month or just talking about 2 months. That would really. She called her house, like her apartment, like her, I don't know, like her, kind of like a shield or kind of like her, she had another word for it, but.
Like her safe place?
Yeah, like a safe place or something like that. And she was like, people like to invade it, but that's why she always let me come over, because she said she felt like it was fine, like her dog liked me and everything. Like she would say, hey, you just should belong here type thing. Okay.
And Chris Watts also says that with Nicole, it was sort of like a roller coaster that you're punching the ticket on and you just never can get off. Now we want you to listen to some sound from actually Nicole herself as she is talking with investigators. Maybe the story's a little different here. Listen.
At one point, he told me that they sat down and they talked about it, and he told her that he wanted to either fix things or like to try to fix things, and if she didn't want to fix them, then they needed to like move forward with the separation and like actually file for a divorce at this point was the impression that I got from this, and was what he told me. And so he said that she was like pretty receptive to just not trying. He was like, she seemed like she just wants me to go. He's like, when she has her mind made up, she has her mind made up, and that's what she wants. And he's like, she doesn't want to try anymore. And he's like, and neither do I really.
One thing definitely from these transcripts is that Chris Watts really likes to blame others. First of all, in regard to Shanann, she went with the kids to North Carolina for 4 to 5 weeks, and he said, I wish she hadn't have gone for that time. I wish she'd just been gone for a week, because it was during that time that he was with Nicole every night, he says. Secondly, he talks about Nicole, and he says how she is pushing him in another direction, how aggressive she was with the affair and with all of that. So, Mike, it's interesting. He really doesn't take the blame himself. In fact, that he wishes he could apologize to Nicole at this point for all that he put her through, and wish that it hadn't all happened.
One other thing going along the same lines is him blaming others. He even he credits this relationship, from these interviews, saying this relationship contributed to the murders, but she, talking about Nicole, never asked me to do anything. Real quick, Gene, is she motive? Is Nicole Kessinger motive for murder?
It has been in other high-profile cases that we've covered that they believe this other life will be perfect if they can just get rid of this life. But what's interesting is to also murder your children, because many times the children can survive and go into that new life. But if you want to just get rid of that life altogether, you probably do exactly what Chris Watts did.
Unthinkable here.
Yeah.
And he's also paving the way for the relationship with his lies, and he's hiding the whole way. That this is, he's lying, that this relationship's ending, paving the way for something with Nicole Kessinger.
Right, but the lies can stand alone. The lies don't have to go into then murder.
Shanann, if you're out there, just come back.
Chris Watson knows his wife is pregnant with their third child, and he's pursuing another woman. He becomes the most hated man in America.
Whereabouts Shanann and the girls? Are they in the tank?
Chris Watts may have confessed, but he's not telling the whole story until now.
Family Man, Family Murderer, an ID murder mystery. All new special Sunday, June 2nd at 10, only on ID and ID Go.